series was so grounded, and that is something I'm so glad to see it slowly kind of sneaking back into movies and series where there's not too much, side stories. Everything is kind of like connected to just one story, and it's
Yeah.
so the relationships between the siblings and the mom, and those are I don't even think that that has any cultural barrier. I think that's a universal appeal. And it really spoke a lot, and I think it hooks you on. Besides the action and the choreography, the relationships really hook you on from the beginning. When you read the script, was that something that, I mean, aside from you wanting to be on the show, was that something really that spoke to you at a personal level at all?
Yeah, very much. The whole it's funny because we went into it thinking, oh, the food thing is a uniquely Asian thing. The mama running the show is a uniquely Asian thing. And then now that people are starting to see it, we're discovering that it's not a uniquely Asian thing. It's like every culture has a matriarchal, aspect to it. Every culture revolves around food, so it is a lot more accessible to other cultures than at least I originally thought. So yeah, but very much so that was a huge thing. And we didn't know we had Michelle when I signed on. So I was super excited about who that was going to be playing Mama Son.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, all that, like Kevin was just saying all the right things. It's about you could be the biggest gangster, as this show shows. You could be the biggest gangster in Taipei, and head of the Triad and all that, and throw your weight around, internationally. But when Mama says, "Hey, shut up," and it's sit down, everything stops, right? So
Yeah.
that was something that was really cool. That the show, like you say, it's grounded. It's honest to itself. It's able to laugh at itself, I think, which is fun. That's something we haven't seen in a long time. I think, culturally, when you do a show that caters to a particular culture like this one, caters to the Asian market a little bit more consciously than other shows.
Of course.
So often, so often lately, you get a show that tries to amalgamate that culture into the greater consciousness rather than playing towards that culture and laughing at it and laughing with it and appreciating it for all of its flaws as well. And that's what this show tries to do, is be honest to the people in it and to the characters, and not make them into these crazy Hollywood stereotypes, and just let them be people, and that are going through some rather extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it clearly came across very vividly. You know, working on this series, the 5 episodes that you worked on, what was what was the biggest challenge in terms of executing a scene, whether it's through because of choreography, marriage with the camera work, or whether it's just lighting or emotions of characters with the camera?
Yeah, it's on this show, the biggest challenge is always time. It's this kind of level of choreography and storytelling takes a lot of effort and a lot of prep to get it, to achieve it in the number of days. I can't remember what I think we did 9 or 10 days per episode, so it was a really tight schedule.
That is tight.
Um, yeah, the fight choreography was always like, I remember remember going to work on days when we had a big fight sequence to do and thinking, I'm excited to do this, but boy, we got a lot of work to do. And there was always this kind of conflict of excitement and dread when we had a big fight sequence. And to Justin Hughes, our stunt coordinator, he always built more than we needed. He always built, sequences that were much more elaborate, that had, 8 or 10 beats in the fight sequence that weren't on the script page, just so that we had the luxury of being able to go, hey, we really like that beat. Let's replace the one that's in the script with this one, or let's get rid of that one. And it created kind of an embarrassment of wealth in terms of the choreography of the fight sequences. The downside to that, of course, is that you've got 50% more fight sequence to shoot than you originally planned. So there was a lot of decisions that had to be made on set on the day. Hey, let's watch the blocking, see the fight sequence. Okay, that's great. We're not going to have time for all that. So let's get rid of this sequence. Let's get rid of this chunk of it. Let's get rid of that. And let's play that one up a little bit more. So it was always time versus choreography versus trying to when it was emotional sequences, to give the cast, as much time as they needed for the emotional beats. Um, the cast was great. Like they're just such a great bunch of people. A lot of them are newer actors. Justin Chen and Samsung Lee are I don't want to say unknowns, but they're very much at the beginning of their careers now, and I'm so excited for them because it's going to look really great for them. And to watch that on a show like this, you get that's based around a family. That family unit tends to just by default start forming amongst the cast. So once Michelle was there, it very much became the family unit, and watching Michelle bring her years of experience and knowledge to the table and nurture the younger cast into building what they needed to build to arrive at their characters was so great. And then of course she has this incredible history in martial arts and choreography too. So she was like the perfect matriarchal figure for the whole show. And then of course she's Malaysian, I'm Malaysian, so that was one of the best parts of it for me, was that she's our national treasure as far as we're concerned in Malaysia, right? Oscar winner and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, it's so interesting that you talk about Michelle Yeoh. I mean, first of all, she still looks the same as she did in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which was 25 years ago or something like that. But that element of her caliber of actress that she is, and along with all the newcomers, like Justin was phenomenal. I think
yeah,
his acting was absolutely incredible in the entire series. That really came across in the characters too. Like she literally held, not that everybody else didn't do their job, they did, but she was the glue that brought them all together, not only as an actress, but also the mother character.
yeah,
And it was just incredible to see. The characters were so cool that there was opposites of, that's the way it's supposed to be, like where you create conflict, right, in one character
yeah,
and stories. And it was just, it was perfect. And the casting was awesome. Um, and yeah, I mean, and again, going back to the deep cinematography, what was what was the toughest scene to light? I mean, I know we can't talk about scenes, but just something that you want to give me example of that took the longest, whether it was from lighting standpoint or also making sure that, because choreography, there's so much movement and the camera is moving too, so you have to make sure that the lighting is,
yeah,
hitting the spots.
yeah.
Anything that you hear in that realm?
I think yeah, they were all sort of uniformly tricky. I think the most, not troublesome, but the most complicated one was the first fight sequence in at Mama San's house in LA,
Mm,
when the giant shows up. That I think it was mostly because it was it was like week one of camera for the entire season, and we were starting with a massive fight sequence. And we were on a stage. That house interior was a set built on stage. Um, and I think that was a tricky one because we very consciously made a decision early on in production design to build sets that weren't necessarily movie sets that you could just easily pull a wall to cheat and get camera positions where you needed to. We wanted to
hmm
have to sort of keep that sort of vibe that we're in a practical location and we're actually handcuffed by some of the restraints that you would be on an actual location, instead of having the convenience of being able to remove set pieces to get the camera where we wanted to be. So that kind of bit us in the behind on that first week when we were trying to do this fight sequence. But we were heavily storyboarded. We knew the choreography. We knew everything how it was going to be. We had a lighting strategy for that house. One of the fun things that we were playing with, in the house, you'll notice that there's a really bright street light outside the kitchen
Yep.
window, like
Yep.
super orange, super sodium.
It's always on. It's always
Yeah,
on.
it's always on. And the backstory, the backstory that I made up with Kevin was that, well, first of all, we needed something dramatic to really drive that room. So the sodium light was kind of interesting against the color of the moonlight that we brought in from the rest of the room. But we were like, well, how do we justify this light source? And we're like, I know what it is. It's it was the house on the when Mama Son comes to LA with Bruce to find a house. This was the house in the San Gabriel Valley that nobody else was buying because there's a street light right outside that sends this super orange light. So nobody wanted it because it was super obnoxiously lit. But she managed to get it for a good price because of the because of the street light
That's
right there.
awesome.
So that's the backstory to the house. But yeah, that sequence was a very early like wake up uh, situation for us. You know, like, hey, this is the level of fight choreography we want to deliver. This is what it's going to take, and this is how complicated it's going to be. So we that was definitely the most complicated, I think, sequence of the whole thing. And we ended up kind of parsing out little bits of it and continuing to shoot them over the course of the season because it was evolving in the cut, and we were discovering things about that philosophy of staying wide and letting things play. We were discovering things about that maybe handcuffed the editors a little bit too much. So we did end up going back and shooting more inserts here and there just to help, you know, the pacing and the cut
Yeah.
as the edit was coming together. So luckily that was a standing set on a stage. We were able to have the luxury of looking at the cut and then going, okay, let's go back and do, you know, this little sequence over, or let's pick up a couple of beats of that sequence to help with the cut. So, but yeah, that was definitely the toughest.
Right. And working with Kevin, how was that any different than any of the previous directors that you worked with? Not trying to draw comparisons, just because you worked with Zemeckis and you worked on the show White Lotus. What was working with him like? What was so different about him?
Um, I think the biggest difference is that we're friends from before. Like we have a shorthand. We all like the same. We both like the same things. We enjoy
Mm,
um, framing and lighting and camera movement in the same ways, and we're always kind of challenging each other to, hey, why don't we try this? Let's do that. Oh, that's crazy, but let's give it a try. What could go wrong? So I think we're always challenging one another and always keen to do something different, but we both put story above everything else, and I think that's the most important thing. Like um, it's not uncommon that you meet a director um, that sometimes puts the style of what we're trying to achieve ahead of story, and sometimes that happens consciously. Sometimes that's an unconscious thing,
mm,
and it's always a slippery slope when that starts to happen, right? And you start losing touch with the narrative
story.
in favor of the
Yeah.
visuals, right? And so Kevin and I are always very uh, very motivated by what's happening in the story. And we have a shorthand. We've been working together for so long that there's a shorthand between us that it saves us a lot of talking on set where we can just kind of figure
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah.
He trusts me to we'll block the scene, we'll look at it, and we'll decide, okay, we want to do it from this side, and he'll be like, okay, let's go set it up. I'll go talk to the actors, and then we'll build it. And it's 9 times out of 10 he likes what we built, and we don't have any of that conflict that you get sometimes when a director has a different vision of
Yeah.
what was supposed to go on. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that is the shorthand element is so beneficial because 9 times out of 10, most people like in a relationship with DP and director, they would put that element of story above their egos, right? Like that
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
that does happen, like 1 out of 10. Um, but another challenge working with a friend is that like, am I able to express the way I want to without, you know what I mean? Like both in both
Yeah.
direction without
Yeah.
coming across as egotistical. But I guess with your relationship with Kevin, that probably doesn't even come into perspective because you have known each other for a while and that shorthand element kicks in very quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, and we both like the same things. Like we're both motivated by the same things. We both like the same things visually, so it's a much easier, much smoother process
Yeah.
for us. And Kevin preps really hard. Like we spend a lot of time looking at clips from other movies, taking inspiration from stuff that we both like, and really kind of breaking things down and seeing how other people do things, what works, what doesn't work, what we can kind of pilfer and apply to what we're trying to do, but still kind of keep it our own and not just
Yeah,
cut and paste from other stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
sure. What were some of the movies that you guys looked at just for inspirational?
Oh, things like a lot of like Wong Kar-wai stuff, Grandmaster,
Mm.
Crouching Tiger. We couldn't help but look at Kill Bill. It's funny you mentioned Kill Bill because Kill Bill definitely came across the screen a few times.
Yeah.
But things like that, and it wasn't necessarily always entire movies. Sometimes it was just a clip from something that was
Yeah,
interesting,
yeah.
or um, but yeah, lots and lots of stuff. But a lot of Hong Kong types, a lot of Jackie Chan. We would sit and laugh. There were times when we would just put Jackie Chan stuff on and just sit and giggle at it because it was so much fun to watch. And but it gets into your just watching it gets into your blood a
Yeah.
little bit, and it helps you with the process.